Susie's bedroom window faced east, which meant the morning sun had the habit of gently scorching her high forehead every day, leaving her no chance to linger in bed. It was already 8:30. Most people in the city were either already at work or on their way there by now. But even getting up at 8:30 or 9 felt like a Herculean task for Susie, let alone 6 a.m., the time of real heroes. The kind of people who squeeze in yoga before the work and whip up picture-perfect breakfasts. Come on, for heaven's sake, let's get up, she muttered to herself. Otherwise, we'll either be late for work or go completely blind. Then, switching tactics, she added, You still got that lovely buttery croissant. You'll spread it with cream cheese, lay it with a couple of slices of salmon and avocado. Perfection. When scare tactics failed, food-based bribery usually worked. Almost instantly, she was trotting toward the bathroom, saliva pooling in her mouth like an overexcited puppy. Susie hated showers, though, not because of laziness, but due to what she proudly called her water allergy. Her enlightened friends always insisted it was psychosomatic, but Susie preferred to think of it as a rare genetic quirk. Before Brian, she'd often willed this little fact like a party trick to impress men in first dates. After all, how often do you meet someone allergic to water? It usually sparked an entire conversation. So, how do you swim in the ocean? Or, do you even know how to swim? Or, let's take a shower together. I want to see this for myself. No, Simon, she'd think bitterly. You absolutely do not want to see this. It's much less interesting than it sounds. Still, showers were unavoidable. The thought of someone catching you in a whiff of something other than Jo Malone's nectar and blossom on her sun, cold sweat trickling down her spine. That scent was her signature. Her hairdresser swore that man would do anything for a woman wearing it. So far, the best Susie had achieved with it was an extra packet of ketchup at McDonald's. To cover the bases, she sometimes layered this fragrance with English pear, hoping it would at least catch someone's attention. Showering was a necessary evil, but on her lazy day, Susie would settle just for washing her hair, leaning over the bathtub. Skipping this step, however, was strictly forbidden. One day of neglect was all it took for her freshly shampooed locks to turn into greasy, weak-cold ginger carbonara. With the amount of hair on her head already sparse enough to match what her friends shed in the morning, the whole ordeal took less than 3 minutes, and today was one of those days. All right, showtime skills. What do you have for me today? Susie muttered to herself. I barely ate yesterday, drank tons of water. Don't let me down, you little devils. She loved talking to herself. Despite having plenty of friends and even smiling till your cheeks hurt kind of days, Susie considered herself her favorite conversational partner. She once read in a magazine that talking to yourself was a sign of high intelligence, and ever since it had become another one of her selling points. The scales blinked. 135 pounds. No way! She gasped. 1.5 pounds more than yesterday. Barely holding back hysteria, Susie jabbed at her weight tracking app with trembling fingers, entered the new data, and was promptly greeted by the usual reminder. With her height of 5.2 feet, it wouldn't hurt to shed just a little weight. Just a little translated to at least 22 pounds. Annoyed, she shoved her phone out of sight, deciding to simply avoid looking at anything below her neck in the mirror. Do they have any bloody clue how insanely hard it is to lose weight at 33? Though, truth be told, Susie loved the bathroom mirror. The lighting here flattered her jawline, on the left side anyway. In the hallway mirror, the situation was far less forgiving, revealing an unfortunate accumulation of chins. 15 minutes could easily slip by as she admired the flattering angles in the bathroom. The right side, however, was a different story, where the light betrayed the harsh realities of her face. So, she said, straightening up. Was today affirmation? Susie grabbed her phone again, forcefully closing the weight tracking app and opening her notes. Ah, here it is. She stood up straighter, trying to muster a confident smile, but immediately regretted it. The sight of her uneven teeth instantly deflated her. Bracing herself, she glanced at the phone screen for guidance and in a forced voice declared, I love, respect, and accept myself just as I am. Silence followed. From somewhere below, the sound of muffled laughter drifted up. Susie froze. Her fake smile plastered awkwardly across her face as she stared at her reflection. Well, that was embarrassing. Maybe I'll try a different one. Clearing her throat, she scanned the notes again. This time with a little more volume, she proclaimed, My body is amazing, and I admire all it can do. Even the pigeons on her balcony seemed to cringe at this. All right, last try. She took a deep breath and, with all the confidence she could muster, shouted, "My boobs are fantastic." The pigeons scattered, flapping in all directions as if fleeing from the sheer embarrassment of it all. Susie, however, smiled broadly, feeling oddly victorious, and strode out of the bathroom. Susie worked from home today, which meant she didn't need to put too much effort into her outfit. As she walked back to the bedroom, she picked up random clothes scattered across the floor, giving each one a quick sniff to assess the damage. "Yep, this one's heading straight to the wash," she muttered, wrinkling her nose as she tossed a sweatshirt onto the growing pile. "Tomorrow's an office day, and absolutely nothing clean matches." Classic. She had this rule, no repeating outfits in the same week. Every day, her wardrobe needed to reflect her mood, whether chaotic, cheerful, or "I didn't sleep, don't talk to me," or "don't come closer, I'm on my period." As a result, her closet packed with pieces that stubbornly refuses to go together. Susie glanced at her phone. No messages from Brian. Again. For 2 years she'd been doing this, checking, hoping, finding nothing. And yet optimism clung on, like a stubborn stain she couldn't scrub out. "Fine, I'll text first," she muttered, thumbing out a quick good morning before hitting send. She smiled faintly, trying to convince herself it was enough to make the day better. "All right," she sighed. "Work time." Opening her laptop, Susie was greeted by a flood of emails and a dozen messages in her work chat and 2 meetings booked for the day. One of them was set to start in, she checked the clock, 3 minutes. "For the love of..." "Do any of you even do anything on your own?" she groaned, glaring at the screen. "What are you even getting paid for?" With no time to linger, she rushed to pull herself together. Hair brushed, shirt a vaguely clean white one, pants, who needs them on a video call? By the time she joined the meeting, Susie had switched on her brightest fake smile. "Good morning, everyone. Sorry I'm a bit late. My computer decided to act up." "Good morning, Susan," her colleagues chimed in, all looking far too chipper for 9 a.m. Susie couldn't stand how polished they seemed, like they'd woken up at crack of dawn, hit the gym, and made themselves avocado toast on homemade bread before hopping onto the call. "Good morning," she repeated, pinching her cheeks for a hint of color. As discreetly as she could, she shoved an empty coffee mug and last night's pizza crust out of the camera frame. "We hope this early meeting isn't too much of a bother," one colleague said, with a syrupy sweet tone. "We know you've got a lot on your plate, but we just couldn't do without you." Susie softened a little. They were not wrong. The company didn't have many people with her level of expertise. "Not at all," she said, injecting a little enthusiasm into her voice. "I've been up for hours. I looked over the brief, and I'd love to help. Thanks for thinking of me." "Perfect. Your insights are crucial for this project. We're so lucky to have your expertise in publishing." The call dragged on for 40 minutes longer than planned, leaving Susie scrambling to deal with everything else. Still, even in chaos, she never forgot about lunch. Lunch was sacred. Dinner might be the king of meals, but lunch was the queen, and Susie didn't mess with royalty. Food was one of the few things in life that brought her real joy, so she treated the selection with almost religious seriousness. Honestly, she probably put more thoughts into choosing her lunch than she had into picking her last sofa. After agonizing for 10 full minutes, she settled on Sichuan dumplings, the spicy, fragrant kind that practically sent to her through the food delivery app screen. When the delivery finally arrived, and she was going to get it, the phone buzzed. "Brian?" she thought, a tiny spark of hope lighting up. But no, it was Anne, her best friend, FaceTiming as usual. She probably just wants to kill time, Susie thought, suppressing a sigh. She didn't have the energy for Anne's marathon chats, but she answered anyway. "Anne, hang on a sec, I need to grab my food downstairs," she said, pulling on some sweatpants. "No rush," Anne replied breezily. "I'm in the shower, got bored, figured I'd call." Susie rolled her eyes. Typical Anne. Grabbing her Sichuan dumplings and basking in their heavenly aroma, Susie returned to her apartment. On the phone screen she could see nothing but Anne's shower curtain and hear the faint hum of her off-key singing. "You still there?" Anne asked, her voice muffled by the sound of running water. "Yeah, I'm here," Susie replied, minimizing the FaceTime window. She quickly checked her messages. Brian had read her text but still didn't reply. "Should I have added a smiley emoji?" she muttered to herself. "What if he thinks that I'm mad at him or something?" Anne's voice suddenly boomed from the phone. "What? I didn't catch that. Shampoo in my ears." Susie jumped. "Nothing. I just sent Brian a good morning text and he didn't reply," she admitted, her voice louder now to be heard over the water. So, how are things with him? Anne asked. Her tone was casual but pointed. Susie hesitated, her fingers picking at a hangnail. Fine, no updates. We went to the movies yesterday, it was nice. Who suggested it? Anne asked sharply. I did, Susie admitted, but again, Anne cut her off. Susie rushed to defend herself. I really wanted to see this movie, and I wanted to get good seats, so I bought the tickets in advance. Brian said we could just get them at the door, but I hate sitting off to the side or in the front rows, and those are the only seats left by then. She paused, then added quickly, and you know he doesn't keep money on his credit card, he only pays in cash. It was my thing, so I figured it was fair for me to pay. Did he even offer to pay you back? Anne pressed. No, Susie admitted, but he bought drinks and snacks. You don't even eat snacks at the movies, Anne countered flatly. I had water, Susie said defensively. The line went silent for a moment, and turned off the water, wrapped herself in a towel, and calmly said, Got it. Susie felt the need to explain further. You know he's having money issues. He's still trying to figure out what he wants to do, something he's passionate about. He doesn't want to work for someone else. He wants to start his own business, and as his girlfriend, I should support him. Sure, Anne said evenly. But as your boyfriend, shouldn't he be making at least some effort? Susie, you can't keep settling for the bare minimum. It's painful to watch. Susie bristled. Is this about me, or are you projecting your own issues? How's Colin, by the way? Still ghosting you after sneaking out in the middle of the night? The silence on the line was heavy. Anne remained calm, rubbing moisturizer into her face like she hadn't just been called out. Feel better now? Anne asked coolly. Sorry, Susie muttered. It's fine, Anne said softly. You'll figure it out. Susie felt a pang of guilt but quickly found an excuse to end the call. I've got to get back to work. Another meeting coming up. Okay, call me later, Anne replied. She clearly knew there wasn't another meeting, but didn't press. Susie hung up. There wasn't another meeting until 4, but conversations like that drained her. Deep down, she knew her relationship with Brian wasn't perfect. But then again, what relationship was? She loved almost everything about him. His fascination with ancient civilizations, his thoughts on political conspiracies, his goofy humor. He loved sharing book passages with her, loved eating together, loved dreaming out loud about leaving his mark on history. He loved her mom's apple pie, loved long walks and Martin Eden. But in 2 years of this imperfect yet deeply felt relationship, Brian had never once said he loved her.